Hello everyone, this is Mini Ninja speaking. Welcome to a new installation of the Bootleg Breakdown series. And for this particular episode, we're going to be taking a literal look and breakdown of this Super Saiyan 3 Goku 2.0 bootleg I happen to have picked up a little earlier. To kind of give you a backstory of what's going on here, I actually picked up this figure around the same time I picked up the second Android 18 bootleg, which was technically the original version of it, as well as a Krillin bootleg, just for the gist of it. And what's going on here is, even looking right out of the mailer box that I got this out of, I noticed there were a few little oddities. A number of things that kind of are normal with the rest of the bootlegs. I'll leave a more full review to other videos that have done this long before me in this case. The figure standing a little tall in this case, particularly around the torso. To my understanding, this might have something to do with the figure being a bit of a kit bash of the actual bootleg here, as well as some bits from like a Super Saiyan God Goku figure, which might explain why things don't seem to fit quite right. In my case, because of how tall it was standing, the little halo there actually has a bit of a stress mark on the halo, because it got bent in package and stayed that way. And speaking of things not fitting quite right, another issue I have on my particular figure is the faces, except for the one that came on the figure default, don't actually fit properly. The reason is because the actual kind of peg holes in the back, they're kind of rectangular shapes, are uneven on basically all but the first piece in this case, so they're actually all a bit too small to stay on there properly. I've seen other people kind of fix that in order by heating up the pieces and kind of forcing the faces on there to keep it on there, but gonna have to figure out a more permanent solution there, because obviously they can warp back to the original shape. And well, as you can see, the faces really aren't sitting too well in this case. Another issue, the big issue I have though, is the torso standing too tall, and in this case not fitting properly at all. Just look at that huge gap there. You can tell the things are pegged in there. There is some movement, but it's far from the correct fit. Everything's standing way too tall, and it's just swinging openly. And imagine if you really put enough force, you could kind of swing it all around, just do a full 360. So that is something I definitely want to address at this point. Now for the quite literal breakdown part of this video, we're doing this at normal speed in this case as I kind of narrate over. The easiest steps, of course, are to start by removing the limbs in this case. Thankfully the the shoulder pieces of the gi all come off pretty easy. They're really held only by one peg at the back, and the pieces themselves tend to be very rubbery. In fact, possibly a little too so. They're a bit loose fitting, so I'm going to probably have to heat those in order to really get them curved into place later on a more permanent basis. And in terms of the arms and such, really, for most SH Figuarts things, you can just kind of pop the ball point or ball peg out of the shoulder just fine. In the case of the second one here, if you kind of want to see how this one is set up inside the ball peg, since it doesn't come out cleanly, you can see it's kind of it's got a butterfly joint in there. It's kind of a circular peg in this case, or more, not so much of a circular, kind of a rounded peg, which is a bit different than I was expecting, at least based off of what I've seen in other bootleg figures. And oddly enough, throughout the bicep there's actually a little tube that kind of goes between everything, between the bicep, and connects it to the shoulder joint there. And that seems to be what actually holds everything together. It's actually being held together by kind of pressure and the connection of the pegs from one end to the other, which explains kind of how the shoulder swivel works on this figure, which is itself interesting. Now moving on to the head, of course, let's take off the face here. The neck pegs thankfully tend to be just easy to pop off in most cases. The one thing about the Super Saiyan 3 head here is, because of the way the giant hair is done, it's done by a swivel. I'm not going to bother messing with the swivel any bit there. And we move off the upper torso, and now we can kind of see what's going on here. We can see in the upper part of the torso how the middle part is actually just one solid chunk of plastic with a ball peg that is holding in place. And that ball peg is going to be connected to the scoop that's in the middle part of the body here. Doesn't seem to have a lot of movement here in this case, which I'm not sure if that's how it is in the real toy, but I can see how it's kind of used to hold things in place. Looking at the bottom torso in this case, the legs themselves are what you expect, the kind of standard thing. They're using the 2.0 legs, which are kind of held in with a ballpoint system themselves with a bit of a swivel, so those pop off easy enough. There's a little piece of plastic kind of helped hide that joint, so just repeat the same thing with the next guard, and well, that keeps everything pretty organized in this case. Looking at the actual middle part, the lower torso, it's actually 3 parts here as far as I can tell. There's the part with the scoop, which connects to the bottom part, and the kind of rubberized abdomen is threaded through there. So once that all gets separated, the belt itself is always its own piece. And as you can see, the bottom part is kind of connected by a ball point of its own that threads through there. And what I didn't realize is the little plastic scoop, which is made out of harder plastic, is its own piece not only, but also seemed to have actually been inserted backwards when I took a look at there. There's like a little indentation there that seems to suggest how this piece is supposed to be there, and the way I found it in this figure was actually reversed. So I'm kind of thinking, what if it's something that could work, but it was just reversed this whole time? Mind you, when I kind of did a little test bit off camera, which I don't think I recorded in this case, it turns out even if you pat it in correctly the right way, it still doesn't actually fit properly in this case. Which begs the question, has something been taken from another figure that's actually a bad fit in this case? Or is this just been poorly cast? Or if this is indeed a recast of the original figure, has it just been botched in such a way that it doesn't actually fit proper? Actually, let's backtrack a second. I think I literally just said the same thing twice. To kind of paraphrase or restate that, what I'm thinking here is that either A, the piece has been inserted completely backwards, which might explain why it's not fitting, or because how these things are probably going to be recast, not so much factory rejects it feels, because things do feel a bit off here. However it's been cast improperly, so things will, no matter what you do, they won't fit properly. Especially a little rubberized bottom piece there, you can kind of see I'm messing around with what the proper height probably should be based on what I can see off both the pictures off the box as well as some official figure photos that I believe I was using Toy Arc for reference photos here of what the rough height should be in this case. And looking at how this thing should fit compared to those multiple sources, with the ball peg system as it is in the middle there, it's seemingly physically impossible to make it fit as is. Which is a bit weird. Unless, of course, the casting is botched in such a way that it literally cannot fit, which would explain just about everything, in fact. Alright, because this is a little more complex than I thought it might be, we're going to actually call this as a part 1 of the video in a moment or so, and here's the reason why. The thing that seems to be really keeping this figure apart, or not connecting properly around the torso, is that the hard plastic ball point is actually physically too long in order to fit in the ball cup in the bottom as well as fit in the torso. It can do one, but it can't do both really. So the only way to really fix that is either A, mess with the ball cup on the bottom, which I don't have the tools to fix really and remake, or really shorten the peg at the bottom or peg on the top part there and kind of make it fit in that way. So on the next video I'm going to actually experiment with doing just that. Seeing if I can crack open the torso, get to that part, and cut it down the size of it, so to speak, so it can actually fit in the torso. So, meet me in part 2.